have no idea. Nobody's ever seen a snake doing any gardening. So I don't know why they're called garter snakes. But their proper name is actually none of the above. These are garter snakes. Garter with a T. And that silly name is just because a long time ago, men used to wear garters to hold up their socks. And these garters that men wore were stripy. And that's something you'll notice about Patty and Becky, our garter snakes, is they're very stripy. Stripe on the back, stripe on either side. That's where they got their name.
Don't put your hand there.
So I mentioned lots of people see these snakes because they love to come out and laze in the sun. Now this is a very important thing that everybody should know about snakes. Snakes are incredibly lazy. Do you know what a snake's favorite thing to do is? Nothing. Never. Laziest animals you can possibly imagine. But when you see a snake lazing in the sun, it's not only because they're lazy, it's also because snakes, like all kinds of reptiles, are cold-blooded. Anybody ever heard that term before? Oh, there's lots of hands. How unfortunate. Because honestly, I don't like it when people call snakes cold-blooded. Because you know what? A lot of people use that term to mean mean and nasty and scary. They talk about cold-blooded killers and politicians and lawyers. And that is not fair. These animals are not mean and nasty or scary. It's lovely snakes. Cold-blooded has nothing to do with their personality. It's actually referring to the temperature of their blood. But there's the second reason I don't like the term very much. It can be very misleading. Remember, these snakes like to come out and lie in the sun on a hot summer day and they're soaking up those rays of heat from the sun. Their blood could actually be hotter than yours. They can be hot-blooded, cold-blooded animals. Wait a second, that doesn't make any sense. So I'm on a mission, and this is where I need your help. I'm trying to get people to stop using that horrible term I'm not even going to say anymore. And instead, if you're talking about snakes or other types of reptiles, please use the perfect word, my favorite word, ectotherm. Which I know sounds like a big complicated scientific word, but it's not so bad if you break it down. Ecto means pick something out of the blue. What do you think? Like stripy. Well, now I will tell you that River here, the water snake that's here today, she is the prettiest water snake on the planet, I think. She is 5th generation captive bred in our collection, and I might be a little bit biased because she's mine. But not always are their patterns the same. Sometimes they're solid black or don't have any stripes or bands at all. So we can't really go with that. But their behavior, always, swimming around and looking for fish frogs and near lakes and ponds and rivers. Do you have an idea of a good name? Swimmer snake. Well, and they often do spend a lot of time just lazing around on the shore. So not always swimming. Do you have an idea? Oh, water snake. I like that one. You are actually perfectly correct. This is our native Ontario northern water snake. Perfect name for this beautiful animal. Now, if you do see a snake in the wild, it is quite different than the snakes and the animals we have here today. If you see an animal in the wild, it's quite handy, we call those wild animals. And wild animals are treated differently than pet animals or domestic animals. So, does anybody have an idea of what you should do if you do approach or see a wild animal? If you're out there in the woods and you see a wild animal, what is the best thing to do with that wild animal? What do you think? Leave it alone. Exactly. That is perfect. And I know that you guys know that. If you saw a skunk in the backyard, would you go out and run out and pet it? No. See? No. Smart. What if you were on a trail and there was a bear in the way? Did you go up and slap it in the face? Oh, see? I can tell. You guys are really on the ball here. You know. We leave wild animals alone. But that's no fun. So let's make up a story. You should leave wild water snakes alone, but let's say you didn't. Let's say you were out there and you saw a beautiful water snake like River and she was lying out in the sun, and instead of leaving her alone, let's say you snuck up on her and you grabbed her and you picked her up. Now I'll tell you something, snakes are short. I mean, there are really no tall snakes. This snake, she's a beautiful snake, quite a good size. But if you look at the bottom and then the top, she's like this tall. This tall. And the biggest snake in Ontario. Oh my gosh, it's like this tall. They're tiny. They're so short. You, to a snake, you guys are gigantic, terrifying Godzilla monsters. To a snake. I think you're quite good looking. Lovely audience. Everybody looks beautiful. But to a snake, you are a gigantic, terrifying Godzilla monster. Because she's not going to throw up on you. She's not going to musk you. And I can't promise anything about putting her pants. These are live animals. So if you're going to take part in the hands-on and holding these animals, there's a risk that you're going to take. Because, yeah, that happens. But hopefully not. And there is one thing though that I did want to warn you that she will do for sure. Actually, all the snakes. When you meet a snake, for sure, it is definitely going to stick its tongue out at you. Don't stick your tongue out at people, especially when you first meet them, because that's rude. And you're not going to make any friends. So the reasons why black rat snakes, like Smokey here, are very special snakes. For one thing, well, I love the name black rat snake. They are black and they eat rats. See, smart audience today, I do it. Now, he's not that picky. He'll eat any kind of rodent. But he is also a great tree climber. Now, black rat snake, Smokey is pretty long, but the longest black rat snake was actually from the floor to the tip of my fingers long. That's over 2.5 meters. That means this is the longest snake that lives in the whole country of Canada. That's a big country. There's a lot of space here. And countries, our country, is divided into provinces. And of all the provinces in Canada, only one of them has black rat snakes. And it's a really cool province. Does anybody want to take a guess? I know you're not in school, but here's your geography test for today. Anybody name a province that is part of Canada? Can you? What's a province in Canada? Oh, Geography 101. It's a quiz here. What about you? Ontario! I was hoping that somebody would know that province, because that's the one we're in. Thank goodness! Ontario! And we have black rat snakes. We win! I don't know what we win, but we win. We have the longest snake in Canada in our province. But we shouldn't be too happy because, unfortunately, it is an endangered species. And what that means is we have actually, this will be my least favorite term, because he's not bland or boring, he's actually super cool. But some old guy wrote about him in a book, so but he really should be called yellow chin turtle. He's the only turtle in Ontario with a solid yellow chin. And Blanding's turtles are in trouble, like all 8 of our turtle species. Every single type of turtle in Ontario is listed as a species at risk. We are worried about wiping every one of them out. And the big problem these turtles have, again, is roads. But it's a little different than the snakes. What happens with the turtles is in the springtime, the mother turtles leave their lakes and ponds and their rivers, and they start wandering around on land. It's kind of a silly place for a turtle to be. They're very slow, they're not very good exception to some of the stuff I was telling you. So this is Steve, and Steve is a snapping turtle. So if you see a snapping turtle on land, you should stay away from it, because they snap. Now what I found very amusing is I have discovered that people are often afraid of snapping turtles. They're afraid of It's a turtle. I mean, seriously, people, you guys can crawl faster than a snapping turtle can run. The only way that you could get snapped by a snapping turtle is if you walked up to one and then stuck your fingers in its face. So don't do that. It's really that simple. It's so easy. Don't walk up to a snapping turtle, snap it in the face. We don't want to block people. Thank you. So it's so safe. It is so easy to not get snapped by a snapping turtle. But it is kind of weird. Why do snapping turtles snap? None of the other turtles snap. They just pull inside their shell. And you can see Steve has that huge shell on the top. That is excellent protection. It is a very hard, very good protective shell. You can also see that Steve does not like the flying part of this shell. So Steve is a snapping turtle that's flying, and that is very wrong, and he doesn't like it. So he's flailing around a little bit. But he really hates the next part of the show, because we're going to tell you and show you the snapping turtle's secret. Because the reason that these turtles snap when they're on land is that they're scared. They're very slow, so he's out there, he's trying to run away from all the predators, and he can't because he's really slow. So all of the predators can simply walk up to Steve, and all they have to do is flip him upside down. Can you see his shell on the bottom? Yeah, we call that the plastron, and it's very small in the middle there. It's really hard. It's excellent protection. But you see how little it is? Look at the size of his head and his legs and his tail. Can he fit all that inside that shell? No. So what happens to Steve when he's on land? If he's walking around, the predators just won't go, and you can poke it in the face. It's a snapping turtle. There's probably a good chance it's going to snap on. And then you have a leash. And you can very gently drag your turtle off the road, not even touching it, not getting near it. Or if you've pulled over in your car, you probably have car mats in the bottom of your car. You can take the car mat out, set it down on the road. The unsuspecting turtle can walk onto the car mat, and then you can sneak around the back and grab that corner and whee, magic carpet that turtle off the road. And you don't even have to touch it. But you could be helping one of the most important animals, in my opinion, in the province of Ontario. Now, everything we've shown you so far are native Ontario animals, snakes, turtles you can find in the province. And as we mentioned, wild animals should always be left alone. It is illegal to have any of our turtles as pets and most of the snakes. Not a good idea. But if you are interested in snakes, and you do think a pet snake would be really cool, corn snakes. These are the best pet snakes, in my opinion, that you can get. They're a lovely size, they're not too big, and they're very, very easy to look after. Corn snakes are not from the desert or the rainforest, they're actually from the United States, but they've been bred and kept in captivity as pets for thousands of generations. They come in tons of colors and patterns. Really, you just cannot get a better pet species of snake than corn snakes. Unfortunately, sometimes people do get what I would say are not such great species of snakes, things like boas. And we did bring a full-grown adult boa. His name's Goliath. So I just wanted to prep you here. Okay, there we go. This is the big one. We're ending the show with the really, really big snake. So Goliath is a full-grown adult Kenyan sand boa. And I just want everybody to know that not all boas and pythons are great, big, huge snakes. Obviously, Goliath here, as I mentioned, full-grown Kenyan sand boa. Now, he does live in Kenya, that's in Africa, and they have lions. And lions are terrifying. And this snake is this big, living with lions? I mean, everything's gonna eat it. So he actually has a shovel-shaped nose, and he digs into the sand and disappears. And that's how he stays safe. But he is a true boa. So like all boas and pythons, he is a true constricting snake. So that means, I know a lot of people don't really understand what that means. But the boa constrictors here are famous for it. So these snakes, boa constrictors like Bob here, they do wrap around and squeeze their prey. That is what they eat. We're not what they eat, so nobody should worry about that. And they used to think that these snakes would wrap around and squeeze their prey and suffocate it. You know when somebody hugs you really tightly, it's hard to breathe? That's what they thought these snakes did. Turns out they're not very polite. He doesn't understand personal space issues. But Bob here, so when they wrap around and squeeze their prey, they can squeeze so tightly that instead of suffocating their prey, they can actually stop the prey's heart from beating. Instead of suffocating in a minute or two, the prey is dead in a second. That's how powerful these snakes are. So, do you guys want to put Bob around your neck? Alright, well you guys are either incredibly brave or you were paying attention, because we did say they wrap around and squeeze their prey. That is what they eat. In case anybody is unclear, we are not what they eat. Having said that, when you're holding the snakes, sometimes they will wrap around and squeeze. Well, right now, Bob is wrapped around and squeezing my neck. That is not because he wants to snack on my head later. The reason he's doing that is that he doesn't want to die. Remember, snakes are short. This great big huge snake, bottom, top, he's this tall. If you were up this high, somebody's throwing you off a, 8-story tall building? That's really scary, kind of dangerous. Worst case scenario, if Bob fell from my shoulders, he could die. Best case scenario, he's really gonna get hurt. And those are both bad things. So he doesn't want them to happen, so he is gonna hold on. So we do have a hint. If you're holding a snake, or more accurately, it's holding you, if you do want to get the snake off, never ever hold on. Because with a big, powerful snake like this, it's not going to work. He is stronger than we are. That doesn't mean you get to keep him. Doesn't mean you get to go home with Bob, because you can't pull him off. But you can gently unwrap. So generally, you find an end near the head or the tail, and you gently unwrap the snake, and they will come right off. We do have some other very, very important rules for the hands-on. Our number one rule, when we have the snakes out for the hands-on, no scaring anybody. No poking snakes at anybody, no chasing anybody around with snakes, no making hissy noises. If anybody does that at all, we're done. We put the snakes away, nobody gets a chance to touch or hold them or anything. It's very easy for the animals to get hurt when people do that, and people can get hurt as well. So we have zero tolerance to no scaring anybody. We also need you to remember these are live animals. Please treat them very gently. No squeezing, pinching, pulling, dropping. Basically, anything you don't want done to you, don't do to my snakes. If you are nice to the snakes will be nice to you. If you are mean or nasty, if you hurt, scare, or bite my snakes, they or I will bite you back. Most of the snakes won't bite and you wouldn't notice anyway, but I'm terrifying. Huge teeth, quite ready to bite, in defense of my snakes. So please be nice. Also, do not put any of the snakes down on the ground. We need them to be a little bit longer, don't we? Baby? Look at me for a second. Wow. You want to try this? You want to try that? Well, you might be able to help her. Christian, done? You want to see after? Yeah. Okay, we're going to look. See you. Okay. So let's track him out before we grab him, eh? Alright, big shoulders.
Marco wants to go take the cars out too.
Marco?
Did you want to try it? Yeah. Go high five.
You want to put
This way. There we go.
You want a necklace? Necklace? Alright. Did you want a whole one?
This one looks so strong.
So that is blue.
Eva, can you turn around?
Nice job.
Let me see.
Here it is. Hold hands. Hold hands. Perfect.
They actually don't need to close their eyes because they have a scale to do. They can kind of close their eyes slits because these guys, they look like cats and they can actually close their like enough food and stuff. So they can essentially go to sleep.
It's
It
wet.
feels like silk.
It feels like a sausage.
Can I get a picture of you holding it? Can I get a picture of yours? Yeah.